The ability to get deep into that human behavior aspect allowed me really to be able to accurately predict what human interaction will go like, and therefore to say, yes, this product will have greater success if we approach it like this or like that. But really, it's learning about human nature and behavior.
Ciao, io sono Marco Imperato e questo è il podcast di Prodotti, l'ecosistema per chi fa product management in Italia. In questo episodio parleremo del percorso di carriera da product manager, ovvero se scegliere B2B versus B2C, se specializzarsi in qualche industry oppure scegliere in base all'intuito. E in più parleremo del background tecnico. È davvero necessario avere un background tecnico per fare un percorso di carriera nel product management? O meglio, come il lato umanistico può aiutarci nell'era dell'intelligenza artificiale? Lo faremo in compagnia di Olivia Grace, che è Senior Product Director in Meta e precedentemente lo è stato in Slack, Instagram, Tencent, Twitch, un sacco di aziende super interessanti. E in più Olivia sarà speaker alla Product Heroes Conference 2025, quindi se vuoi conoscere e incontrare Olivia, questo è il momento giusto per fare il biglietto, se ancora non l'hai fatto. Ciao Olivia, welcome to Product Heroes.
Ciao! Thank you for the kind words.
Did you get anything?
Yes, I think, maybe I say 50%.
Good enough. So, first
Yes.
question, you have an unbelievable story. In the first
Yeah.
chat we had, I was like, wow, how can you do
Very
all
kind.
this stuff? Starting from
Yeah.
a master
Yeah.
degree in social anthropology. So I'm very curious to hear your story.
Yeah, so before the master's degree in sociology, I think everyone who is a certain vintage, they've been in product management for a certain amount of time, we're like wine, but everyone has a different story because when I was at school, product management wasn't a thing that existed. So for me, I started off like everybody does, professional musician, air show organizer, then into real estate because I ran out of money one winter. And I stayed in real estate for around 7 years. And then we get to the point where 2008, a bad time to be working in private equity real estate. I lost my job. A lot of people lost their job. And so, like you say, I went back to university and I studied this master's in social science. In the correct title is psychological and psychiatric anthropology, which is a
Wow.
very long way to say sociology. And for me, I was fascinated by how people create these communities online. I play a lot of video games. I played a lot of World of Warcraft. And for me, I just thought this is the way that communication is going to evolve. So I did this master's. And while I was doing the master's, I got a job writing about World of Warcraft. And, I thought this will help me to find people to talk to for my master's. And what happened instead was, I'm sure your listeners will know that if you are female and talking about computer games, that's unusual. So back then in 2010, especially. And so that then led to doing all sorts of different things, television, podcasts like this, excellent podcast, lots of different things. And eventually, this led through this very windy path to me being asked to do video content creation. So making videos about World of Warcraft for a company called Tencent. And they said to me, gosh, you're very organized. You have good scheduling, you have good management. Have you done anything else? And I said, yeah, not just video content. I was a global director of value add asset management for a hedge fund. And they said, what? For a hedge, so you went hedge fund asset management to World of Warcraft blog writer. It's like, yes, you got it. That's right. And so they said to me, do you want to be a product manager? And I said, what's a product manager? What is it? What does that mean? And so they explained it to me. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And so then I went with Tencent for a short time. A company called Blizzard that makes World of Warcraft came and got in touch with me. And they said, will you move to California? And I said, okay. And I started working for Blizzard. And then from Blizzard, I was at a small company called Curse, which was then acquired by Twitch. And so I was at Twitch for 3 years. And then I was at Instagram. They came and they said, hey, we want someone who knows about communication, who can help us with Instagram Live. So I came over to Instagram for Instagram Live and then we heard from Instagram Live that the teens really wanted to go live with just their best friends. And so we said, oh, that's a video call. And so we built Instagram video calling, which is still the fastest growing part of the Facebook calling platform. And it was a very successful launch. And so then I stayed at Facebook for a while, and then Slack came along and said, hey, do you want to come work for us, building innovative products on top of Slack? And I said, yes.
Yeah, I can say it's an amazing path and very strange. And I like the thing you said, okay, you switch from private equity asset manager to World of Warcraft content creator. And so what? It's okay.
Yes. Yeah, same as everyone else.
But what were the most valuable skills and insights you gained during this period in which you
Yeah.
were community manager, content creator within World of Warcraft?
I think honestly, the things that I learned there, I felt like, have you seen the film Back to the Future? When
Obviously, many
the
times.
end of the film, yes, it's a good film. At the end of the film, he brings the guy the book of the baseball scores through time, and so he can make all the good bets on the baseball at the very end of the film. I felt like that going into my roles at Twitch and at Meta, because to me, I felt that I had this, my masters had given me this really deep understanding of the human nature of communication online and really gave me the space and the time to think about how do I, Marco and I don't know each other well. How do I see you on the internet in this detached environment? And how do I form a connection with you? Like, what are the actual mechanics, the actual methods? What's going on in my head, in your head, when you're meeting someone online for the first time? And so the ability to get deep into that human behavior aspect allowed me really in my time, particularly at Facebook and at Twitch, and again then at Slack, to be able to accurately predict what human interaction will go like and therefore to say, yes, this product will have greater success if we approach it like this or like that. But really, it's learning about human nature and behavior. And so the nature of how people interact online, how they build communities, how they find friends, how they engage with family. So yeah, the humanity of it all and the ability to understand people and how they work is to me by far the most valuable skill for me.
And you know very well, I think that there is this bias that says that to be a good product manager, probably it comes from Google, in which most of product managers come from engineer. You have to understand very, very well tech. So I didn't come from tech as well. I came from media and communication. I'm not able to write any single line of code. I mean, now, yes, with Replit, Bolt, and Lovable, I'm very good at it. But I'm not a coder. So how did you overcome this bias?
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting for me because these barriers were ones that I never encountered. I came through obviously started with gaming and came across, and at no time did I run into this expectation that I would be able to write code. We had these excellent developers who were building the games, these excellent technicians who were building the systems, and my role was quite simply was to figure out how the people would engage with everything that was being built and to make it the most optimal place. And so like you, I can't write a line of code. I could write you a website if you don't mind it being in frames, HTML1, like, I could do that, but I did that in my spare time as a kid. And I cannot write a single line I can't even use SQL. But for me, it has never been a problem because I'm surrounded by people who can do that much better. So I have never once run into any expectation that there is code coming from me, but I have many times run into the expectation that I can accurately predict human behaviors and outcomes.
You changed a lot of companies in the recent years. So how did you navigate this transition between, Twitch, Instagram, Slack, Meta, different business models, different industry, different people, I think, different culture,
Yes.
different attitude. So how did you do it?
I think the biggest part to me is remembering that across industries, across skills, across, types of product area, there is generally more similar than there is different. And so I think the philosophy for me, whenever I change jobs, which I do regularly, like every 3 or 4 years, and earlier in my career, more regularly every 2 years around that, I think you're always trying to bring something useful to the new team and also learn something new. For me, I see my role as learning, and I learned a lot with every new role I took on. And so I think it's more to me, what can I add to myself to make myself a more well-rounded, a more useful, a more knowledgeable product manager by encountering new problems. And so I think it's really about thinking about those transferable skills and saying, hey, what do I already have that is useful? And so when I go into the interviews, or I haven't looked at a job spec for a long time, but in the interviews where people have come to me and said, hey, we think you would be useful, part of the reason I'm talking to them is to find out why. And so they think, oh yeah, because we think you know this. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. That helps me to understand how to have this conversation, why you're interested in hiring me. And it's been as long as you approach these things with a learning attitude, I think that you will have success, because it's really they want you for some reason. For me, sometimes it's because I built a product before that they like, or I've worked at companies that they like the names of or the systems of, but they think that there's something good about me. And so now I'm finding, what is it and what can I learn? And meeting new people, it's the same thing. I'm learning about them all the time. Meeting new problems, it's the same thing. I'm learning about them all the time. And the more quickly I can learn and adapt and change, the better I will be at my job. So really, it's about learning and adaptability and flexibility.
So is it your advice for a PM that is going to start his career or her career to change job every 2-3 years?
It depends. I think it depends on what career do you want to have? What kind of product manager do you want to be? If you want to be extremely specialized, if you know enough about, like for me, like I say, I fell into it by accident almost. So I didn't know what kind of product manager I wanted to be. And so to me, I wanted to be well-rounded. And that's still a thing that I want. So for me, I'm a seeker of novelty. I like new things. I'm a magpie, like find the shiny things and take them to my nest and say yes. So I always want to be learning. I always want to be doing something new, because I want to change and adapt and grow. And I don't want my next 4 years to look the same as my last 4 years. So I want change and growth and difference. Some people prefer to be really specialized. Like maybe you're just extremely passionate about platform growth or AI systems. Like maybe you want to really go deep on one thing rather than be like me, where you kind of bounce around and you do a lot of different things. If you want to go really deep, it makes sense to stay in your job for longer, because by being more specialized, you're removing opportunities from yourself, which maybe that's good. For me personally, I would not like that. But for someone else, that could be good. So I think people who want to be more specialized, there are simply fewer jobs because you are narrowing, so you should stay for longer. If you're like me and you want to be very broad and be able to do anything, I would recommend starting your career, changing jobs more regularly, because you can build a more well-rounded CV resume by doing that.
Looking back at your career, is there a specific decision that significantly impacted your professional growth, your trajectory?
I think there have been many. I mean, every time I took a new job, that was certainly very impactful, of course. I think the biggest one was actually probably at Instagram. We had this idea that this calling system would work. We were basing it on research. We were basing it on talking directly to people. One of the great things about working on Instagram is how much, and I don't know this now, but then at the time, they really valued user research. And to someone who is really interested and motivated and really focused in their product management career on human behavior, research is by far the most useful tool, because you can really talk to people and ask them and see what you think, and learn from them. So they were very, very focused on research. And so we made this decision to, we could have put a WhatsApp inside of Instagram and said, done, we made video calling, high five. And we really wanted instead to say, why should this be in Instagram? What makes it interesting or useful or better? Like already people have WhatsApp. If you have Instagram, you probably have WhatsApp. It's a very, I don't need to tell you, it's a very big system. So we said, hey, let's try and do it a little bit differently. Let's bring some of Instagram into the call. So we built a simple system to allow you and I to look at mutually visible posts on our Instagram feed together. Because the human behavior that we wanted to replicate was, we said to people, how do you know that this is your friend? What are the behaviors that you do with your friend that you wouldn't do with a stranger? And one of the big things that people said is they're like, hey, Marco, look at this funny thing on my phone. I want to show you this thing I found on the internet and I want to make you laugh. That was the biggest single thing, a friend where you make each other laugh. And so we found this we did research in multiple markets across, actually in Italy and in France and in Canada and in America, Mexico, Brazil, Australia, Japan, and we found this incredible consistency. So we said, hey, what if you could do that inside the call? Because it's much better. I can text you, I can WhatsApp you an Instagram post or screenshot and say, hey, Marco, this is a funny thing I found. But that's not, and you send back like a laughing face or LOL, but there's much more fulfilling for me to see your face and see you laugh. And so we built this inside of the call. And it was expensive and difficult, and you can look at videos together. And so we had some amazing engineers figuring out how to do that. And I had come recently from Twitch, so I had a lot of prior knowledge that was useful about like tolerances and how close synchronization needs to be, and what could we try to surmount network issues if you're watching a video together. How good does the timing have to be, this kind of thing. But we did it anyway, and it was incredibly successful. And one of the sort of the highlights of when people say, when I am in interviews, and I recommend anyone do this, free advice. When you're in interviews, you get to the point where someone says, hey, do you have questions for me? The question I always ask is, what are you the most proud of in your career? Like, what is the one thing that you're the most proud of in your career? And for me, I was on a train in Australia with an old guy sat next to me. I talk to everyone. I'm very talkative. So you're talking. And he was saying to me, where did you work? And I said, I work at Facebook. And he said, I use this amazing thing. On Instagram, they have the video call. And it made it so that in the pandemic, when I was all alone in Australia and my grandkids were in London, they were calling me and saying, hey, granddad, look at this thing on Instagram. And it went from being like a 5-minute, how are you? How's the weather type of call to this very engaged conversation of showing me things, saying, hey, look. And that, to me, that's my proudest moment on a train in Australia. It's like I built something that made someone's life better.
Very quick question. How did you do user research in Instagram? I mean, as a product manager, did you manage directly user research, or did you sit like together with UX, user researchers, and did you do these things together?
Yeah, because I did an ethnographic master's, so that I did user research as part of my degree. So I had a little bit of knowledge, but again, I'm surrounded by experts who are very good at their job, so I don't need to do it for them. They would organize interviews in multiple countries, like I said, and I would travel and sit and watch the interviews. So literally sitting like, maybe this door is, like, in the police on television, they have the secret mirror.
With the mirror.
This is the same thing. Instead of a policeman, it's me being like, oh, that's interesting. Ask her about this. So I would just sit there and watch the interviews, and I would bring my engineering teams, my design team, all of them, everyone would come along and we would watch the interviews together. And I felt very strongly about that. And I still feel very strongly about that, because it's very easy when you're typing code to get detached. So we all watch, everyone comes to the user research.
Okay, one question every time I say, okay, this is the last question on this topic, but I cannot stop. That's the point.
Yeah.
So it's my personal learning, my hour once a week. And so one common behavior we have here, I would say in Italy, but maybe in some less mature product management ecosystems is that we want to jump into deploy, into production, into doing things now because we need to be fast. So my question is, how do you balance the goal to have as much information as you can, so doing all the interviews with the necessity to go very fast? So how do you actually manage the work? Do you wait for 100% of information? Do you start right now? Do you do other things on different projects while this project is moving forward just from a user research point of view? So basically discovery versus delivery. How do you balance that?
I think it's, inevitably the answer is going to be it depends.
It depends, obviously.
Because of course it depends. But I think for me, it's if you're building inside an existing system, if you're making a change, an augmentation, a removal inside an existing system, you probably have a good amount of knowledge because the system is live, it's in production already. If you are trying to invent something completely new, then you don't have a lot of knowledge. And so to me, it's really about saying, okay, the most important thing for my opinion is starting with a hypothesis. What is your hypothesis? And so for me, with the calling thing, my hypothesis was people will want to engage with their Instagram content with their friends in a live video calling format. It's like, okay, this is my hypothesis, how much information can I know today? I know people use Instagram. I know they send posts to their friends. I know that they have text conversations with their friends around Instagram content. So the list of things that I can know that make me able to predict the outcome, it's actually pretty good. But trying to think of a place where we had really no information, launching clips inside of Slack, which is the video and voice messaging system inside of Slack. We knew people like to message, but we had no idea, like literally no idea if they were interested in doing so with voice or video. So we look at, okay, what can we know? So it's really about saying what is known, knowable, unknowable.
Okay.
And if you I know that people send images and Instagram posts via text, great. The most is known, great. That's really strong information that you can use to push yourself forwards. Knowable, that's the tricky one. You could know this if you're willing to invest, user research, heavy data science investment, time, and that is the hard part. And then unknowable, you're just never going to know this. Sometimes things are just a 50-50 shot, and you just have to accept that you cannot know this. And so it's really about moving unknowable to knowable and knowable to known. And it's just a case of trying to hit that balance. And sometimes the best way to make the unknowable knowable or the knowable known is to launch the thing. And I can count, 20 products where, in fact, I can't think of one product that I have ever launched where we have known everything. We have had perfect information. You're always hoping, crossing your fingers, pressing your thumbs and guessing. And so it's just kind of risk. And so then the important factors in the company is more about your business. So risk appetite. Meta has had, at the time I was there before, a very high risk appetite. If it doesn't work, either we fix it or we remove it. That's fine. Salesforce, very low risk appetite. SaaS, enterprise customers, enormous companies who are placing their livelihood in your hands, very low risk appetite. And so those different environments lead to different appetite for. Salesforce wants a lot of known and a lot of knowable and very little unknowable. Meta, on the other hand, is very comfortable with a lot of unknown and a lot of unknowable. And so it's kind of a mixture of your business, the situation, the product you're launching, the cost, risk, desired time to market. Are you going to run out of funding runway? That's going to change the whole thesis. But yeah, that's a very unsatisfying answer. I'm sorry.
No, this was my next question. So, because you were talking about Instagram and about the experience of meeting someone on the train that was using the feature that you deployed maybe a few months or years ago. How did everything change when you moved to a SaaS B2B enterprise software in which, yes, you can talk with users, not with buyers. There are complex systems in order to, to purchase the software for the company. So how does the PM role change actually? So skills, mindset, attitude, and how did you survive to this change? Because it's not easy. I don't think it's
Yeah.
now easy.
No, I think it's for me, I think I found so wonderful thing about Slack as a product is it is enterprise software that tries very hard to be consumer grade. And so a lot of the people who work on Slack have a consumer background like me. And I think so there was, like I say, more is similar than different. So I was able to come with some similarity there. Slack's initial market motion as well was very much what our then CPO, Tamar Yehoshua, who's amazing, called land and expand. So you get a small group of people who love you, who start using Slack and they love it. And then they tell two friends, and then they tell two friends, and slowly inside the company, Slack is growing and more people are using Slack, paying for it, and then it hits the kind of critical mass and it becomes the communication product of the company. So when I started at Slack, this was the method. And so the thing that was most important was a thing that I already knew how to do, which was build products that people love. Because if people love it, this market motion works. Salesforce, on the other hand, completely different. And so the interesting part for me was coming into Slack in 2021
Was after
when
the
it was very
acquisition or before?
just after. So I was the very last pre-harmonization hire at Slack. I went under the wire, snuck in. And then but it took with all of these acquisitions, it always takes time for the change to take place. So now, as I move away from Slack back to Meta, Slack has a very enterprise, large company, sales-driven culture. And so the big shifts for me, the changes for my role as like a fairly senior, like I report to the CPO, fairly senior person at Slack, was I am engaging a lot with sales. So I am teaching sales people with consumer product and ad revenue driven product. You're selling to the consumer directly, but the only way that you care about this is time. When you're asking someone to pay for your product, it's a completely different ballgame because you have, like you said, different customers. So you have the end user, basically invisible to you. You can't, it's very hard. You only have user research for them. You have the administrator, so the person who runs the Slack instance, the guy who or the girl who's like, hey, I'm trying to set up these emoji, or I need to change this role type, or I need to get this person out of here. And so the administrator, you have the buyer, like you mentioned. And so I spent an incredible amount, probably 3 hours a week, every week, in meetings with buyers. But my sales team bring me along to answer product questions and to really like help engage the customer and reassure them that we are building the things that they want, or that the way that the software already works like they want. And that was a huge learning for me. I'm not a natural salesperson. My answer, people are like, oh, does it work like this? I'm like, yeah, it works like this. And they, could it work like that? I'm like, no, probably not actually. You probably want a different product if you want to do that. But the sales team found that honesty kind of useful. But yeah, so I spent an incredible amount of time with sales. And then the other customer you have, which was the biggest shift for me, is actually your own sellers. So customer number one is the Salesforce sales teams who will be selling your product. Because if you don't sell your product to them, they won't sell it to all the other customers. And that for me was the biggest change, was having to do lots of enablement sessions and helping our sellers at Salesforce understand Slack.
Okay. A couple of more personal questions. So what's the most significant product pivots you've experienced? I'm in love with pivots because they are very strange. They are kind of fuck ups of your product,
Yes.
but eventually you find a way to survive. Did you witness
Yeah.
some of product pivots?
Well, I mean, and it wasn't my pivot, but taking Instagram Live and building a video calling product was a bit of a pivot. I think from within my own team, we had this product called Canvas, which is inside of Slack, is a document product. So it lets you write
I saw it. I never used it because
yeah,
I didn't get very well how to use it.
that's okay. I forgive you. But and I think that what you said is 100% correct because we launched this document product inside of Slack, and our customer base, our sellers, and our customers said, "Why? Why would I use this? I already have Google Docs. I already have Microsoft Word. I already have Quip. I have something already for this. It serves this need. I don't need it inside of Slack." And so the pivot we made was to go from a word processing document like a Google Docs, Microsoft Word, Quip product inside of Slack towards we called it a sort of convenient template system. So if you're in a video call inside of Slack, we're like, hey, meeting notes, there you go. We made it for you. And so, oh yeah, oh great, yeah, I want meeting notes. If you're in a channel that's like getting very big or growing or has certain titles, like, hey, channel information, hey, workflow information. And so we sort of went from like, people are going to write their product specs in this to this is a convenient note catcher. And it's not a good pivot, but it's just kind of taking what the market is telling us, what the human behavior is, and applying it and not trying to fight it. Oh, if we just teach them it's a word processor, they'll use it like a word processor. That way is madness. So instead, we turned right and said it's a note catcher. It's useful.
Can you describe the moment in which you decided actually to not trying to educate every single customer about, the product that apparently doesn't have so much traction and decided to move slightly, on a different direction? And how did you manage this decision? Because everyone thinks that like pivots are fun. They are not fun. Zero fun. And they are very hard because there is a certain point in which you are still thinking, maybe it's just my fault that I'm not very good at communication. Maybe if we just change that color of the button, maybe it's not the right customer, or maybe it's just the product is wrong. Maybe no one wants this because the market doesn't need it. So there is too much friction, but I would like to understand the, decision-making process.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the big thing which we struggled with which was very hard, and it's still a thing that every team I've ever worked on struggles with. We are not our users. So inside of Slack, everyone uses this document product for everything, product specs, big documents, huge, like everyone just is like, great, it's because Slack lives and breathes inside of Slack. Like you can't email someone who works at Slack, they won't read it.
Really?
Because they're not yeah, really. They're not looking at email. They're only in Slack. And they every day, 8 hours a day, every day in Slack. So we are not our users. Our users don't operate like we do. And it's very hard to remember that sometimes. And so firstly, remembering we are not our users. Secondly, I think launching and then seeing the data and seeing the nature of usage. Now, Slack can't read what people are writing in their documents. And if we could, we probably wouldn't because that's very unethical. But what we can see is when are people creating them, where are they creating them, how much data is in there, like how many lines, and how much time are we spending in there. And all of those showed us, like you look at Slack, chart for Slack, chart for everyone else. Oh, these are completely different. And so it's like, okay, we had a hypothesis. People want to do document management in Slack. That was true. The thing that was wrong was with a native product. So people don't want to do document management and creation in Slack with a native product, but they do want to do it. So it's like, okay, which part of our hypothesis was incorrect? That bit with a native product. It's like, okay, cool. So we were wrong. That happens. And I think, different companies will have different tolerances and environments where sometimes we're wrong, it's okay, is we're wrong and it's not okay. I've always been a big believer that you have to have space to be wrong. And so I really feel strongly about that. But then it's like, okay, so we're wrong. Which bit was wrong? Because it's not the whole thing. It's part of the hypothesis. And that's why it's so important, like I was saying earlier, to have a hypothesis so you can be honest about what don't we know. Like the thing that we didn't know was they don't want to use our native one. It's like, okay, so now we have a system. What other utility does it offer? What other benefit could it offer? How can we try something else? It's just an information holder, really, a document. So let's try a different kind of information holder, a different kind of way to capture stuff. And so then it's like go to stakeholders, talk to the team, see if they're on board, talk to the execs, say, hey, we're not seeing the results we wanted, so we're going to try this. Um, cool. And it's a lot of, stakeholder management.
What's the best piece of advice you've received from a colleague or mentor?
I think there was a man called Stefan Tain, a French man at Facebook, who I think is now at Google. And he said to me that sometimes Facebook is very fast, 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 fast. But sometimes you have to be like the water, he would do this, the water over the stone. So, a stone is very hard, but the water will slowly shape it over time. And I am very impatient. I like going fast. I like delivering things quickly. I like people changing their minds quickly and adapting quickly. It's like, but sometimes you have to be the water going over the stone. And I think about that very, very regularly.
Can you complete this sentence? I mean, it's a question I ask to everyone because, as you know, it's a very complicated phase for product management and I think for technology. So the future of product management will be made of?
People. Because that's all it is. We're just people building things for other people.
Okay. Once we are going to build things for AI, no people anymore.
Maybe, but AI is again for people. It's hopefully the robots don't take over.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. But at the end of the day, they are also things built by people for people. So I think to me, it's like engagement with software is a tool for humans, and AI is a tool for humans. So to me, it's people.
A couple of questions from the community. The first one from Giulio. As I always do, a few days before I write on our Slack channel, because we have a Slack channel for the community. And I'm curious why Slack actually didn't build a community thing. So because right now everyone, this is not the question, just came to my mind while talking with you actually.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't thinking you work at the Slack. I use Slack every day.
Yeah.
But I use Slack, for work is okay. We use Slack and a lot of communities use Slack for their communities, but there is not a community feature for Slack. So obviously we cannot pay for every user because we have thousands of users, so we cannot pay, but it's a shame because we want to use Slack and after 2-3 months, I don't remember, you don't see any information. So we had the channel intro, I think is for a business model reason. But have you ever thought, because you came from community, of having Slack to help more communities?
We have, so there's a few things we have at Slack. We have, there's I forget exactly what it's called. There's basically like a charitable good discount. So if you are a charity that's doing some like charitable good or similar, then there's a large discount on Slack on the pro plan. We also, with Slack Connect, which launched in 2021, which it wasn't part of that launch, but just before I joined, part of the goal was that. So being able to find your friends, your colleagues, your associates, using email addresses and identifier in order to connect your two Slacks together. That was kind of partly driving towards a community feel. And yeah, there's been a couple of, not my team, but a different team at Slack, led by an amazing man called Matt Wall, who have built these sort of community-centric features. But oftentimes with our large enterprise customers, the current focus of the company, they are much more interested in, closing the door and leaving the wall very high around their data and IP, and less interested in everybody come on in. So it's kind of a prioritization problem, really. It's like the priority is not necessarily the communities, but the free offering. If you compare what you can do on Slack for free with what you can do on other products for free, it's pretty good. Yeah.
It's good enough. So this question is from Giulio Latore, that is a member of our community. Is what is the most important thing you look for in a CV or during an interview when you are hiring a PM, a product manager?
I love this question. It's such a great question. Thank you, Julio. The biggest thing I look for is humility and changing your mind. So I will almost always do like we're all familiar probably with the like different types of product management interview. To me, product sense is the most important one. And my product set, if I'm ever interviewing you, you get a free advice. My question will always be the same. Tell me your three favorite apps as a product manager, add a feature to one of them. And so I want you to know the app really well. I'm not trying to trick you, but the thing which I'm looking for is I will then say something where I want you to change your mind. So let's say I build a community feature for Slack. Let's say that's the thing in my interview. And so I say, hey, okay, so you built your community, you launched it, your data is just not good. Like you're not getting strong data back. What are you going to do? And some people will say, no, I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to keep pushing. I believe I'm right. And here's why. And that's not a red flag, but it's not what I'm excited about. What I'm excited about is someone who's like, okay, I'm going to change my mind. And so they're going to change their approach, change their direction, something like that.
I
And
love
examples
this
of
reply. I
changing the
love this
mind.
reply. Because you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking of an email I received from one of my people in which they wrote literally to me, you said this thing 3 days ago, then you changed your mind. Like, shame on you. While to me, like, shame on you, and that's it. While to me, maybe I change my mind too often. That is not good. But a lot of people sees mind changing as a weakness because you're not very, in Italy we call it risoluto. Risoluto is when you have clear ideas,
Resolute.
you go straight,
Yeah.
very strong, very authoritative.
Yeah.
While mind changing is like, okay, you are joking. While to me it's
Yeah.
completely the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. The intellectual flexibility to be presented with new information and change your mind is, I think, one of to me at least, I have been building innovation product at large scale, medium scale, small scale, building new things. You're wrong like half the time. Because like we were saying earlier, the known, knowable, and unknowable, this can be very big. And so always you're guessing. So you're wrong. If you're only wrong half the time, buy
It's very
yourself a
good.
beer. You're having a good day, yeah. And so it's good. So, but it'd be more than half the time you're wrong. So you have to have the mental flexibility to change your mind.
Okay, one last question is very personal from Nicola Pacini, is a member of our community. So now you are getting back to Meta. What are you going to do in Meta?
I am going to do something completely different for me. I'm going to be working on the data and privacy team, which is something completely different. Not not like building consumer product, not like user pixels, something
Why?
completely new. Because to me, it is the most fascinating part of the whole tug of war, the pull of data and privacy. So if Meta runs on ad revenue, we all know that. So if every piece of every user's data was visible to advertisers, that would be the most optimal thing for the advertiser. If no data was visible to advertisers, I think that users would say maybe that's the optimal thing for me. Countries have opinions about this. And so it's really about that balance and creating that balance in an interesting way. So to me, it's fascinating because it's very much the heart of the product. And I'm just really interested in that.
So
So
Nicola's
that's why.
question was, why did you decide to return to Meta from Slack at this particular moment in time? Is this the answer?
The direct answer to her question is they came to me.
As always, as always.
As always, yeah. I haven't sought out a job for over a decade. They always come to me, and they came to me, and it with this really interesting role in an interesting part of the company. yeah, I felt that I had been at Slack for almost 4 years. It's a good time to learn something new. And I really wanted to learn about this fascinating intersection of privacy and people and and regulation and everything else. Yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Okay, last question that is always the same. As the advice that the mentor you were mentioning gave to you many years ago, which would be your piece of advice to a young product manager who's starting his career? Just one advice.
I would say focus on focus on human connection over everything else. Product management, in my opinion, is a people management job. Like the hardest skill to acquire and indeed to teach is building good relationships. The product manager is the middle, is the hub of the wheel. And you have all of these spokes, and you have to manage all of these teams, stakeholders, positions, systems, everything. And so the best way to be successful is to be great with people. And so that would be, it is, you don't need to learn to code. Just being right, having the perfect framework doesn't exist. So the thing that you've got to do is focus on people.
Thank you very much, Olivia.
Thank
So
you.
we'll meet you in Milan. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time since I was in Milan. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
Great.
And
So
I'm
see
looking
you in
forward to
October.
hopefully, yeah, and I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting some more members of your community and answering their questions and having a
Thank you
great
very
time.
much. Thank you very much. Ciao Olivia.
Thank you. Ciao.
Product Heroes è l'ecosistema per chi fa product management in Italia. Ogni anno organizziamo una delle più grandi product conference in Europa con oltre 1000 persone. Finora abbiamo aiutato più di 200.000 persone con master, guide, formazione in azienda, articoli e meetup. Se anche tu vuoi conoscere tutti i segreti del product management, iscriviti al nostro podcast. Scoprirai i consigli e le storie dei più grandi product leader e imparerai a costruire, lanciare e muovere le metriche del tuo prodotto. Ti aspetto su YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast. Per tutto il resto puoi trovarci su productheroes.it e ricordati sempre che dopo i tempi duri vengono sempre i tempi eroici.